Hey guys, welcome back to OrmsTV. Today we have the brand new Canon EOS 90D and we're going to give you a little preview and field test of this camera. But before we get into that, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to smash that bell icon so you get notified of all our latest videos. Let's go have a look. You don't want to just move to the shade. Okay guys, so let's kick it off by just giving you a quick specs rundown here. So first things first, the 90D, obviously an upgrade on Canon's much loved 80D, which was sort of everybody's go-to starter video camera, and if you were shooting stills, stepping it up into a slightly more professional body, you know, before you get into the full frame stuff and that kind of thing. It really was a do-everything camera for everybody. And with the 90D, Canon again wanted to capture that segment of the market and just take it up a notch. And they really did that with the sensor specifications in this unit. So bumping it up to 32.5 megapixel CMOS sensor, which is now the highest megapixel count you can get in an APS-C size camera. And that's quite spectacular. 32.5 megapixels, nothing to be shy about. The other big improvement here is in the drive settings. So this unit will now shoot 10 frames a second with the mechanical shutter, 11 frames per second if you're using the electronic shutter, which is pretty decent for a camera in this segment. The other big improvement is in the autofocus system. So the EOS 90D now runs 45 all-cross type focus points, which covers a decent size of the sensor. So then lastly, the bigger upgrade from the 80D is going to be in your video department. Now, obviously, since the 80Ds come out, pretty much everything's moved over to 4K, and the 90D is no exception. So you now get 4K 30 out of this camera, and I have to say, you know, because it's a Canon, it is not cropped. There is no crop on the 4K, and oh, finally, feels so good to say, no crop on the 4K. Mwah, love you already. Full HD, you can do up to 120 frames per second, but when you do shoot at 120 frames, there's no sound recording, so, and no autofocus, which is a little bit of a letdown, but if you're using it for specific slow-mo shots, it's probably not too bad. Then I just want to quickly dive into look and feel, fit and finish, and ergonomics here. And kicking off with ergonomics, that is something that Canon always nails, irrespective of which camera you look at. And this is no exception. The grip is nice and deep, solid in the hand, easy to handhold, no problems there. You have a flip-out screen, so no problem if you're a vlogger, absolutely perfect. Everything really feels solid. All the dials feel nice, the buttons feel good, everything is exactly where you expect it to be, and the same is true for the menu setup. It's classic Canon, it's easy to use, easy to operate. If you've used any of their cameras before, you pick this up, you will have no problems at all. The actual construction also feels pretty solid, very similar to what you had in the 80D. Canon has bumped up the weather resistance slightly from what it was in the 80D, but it is still not quite where something like a 7D Mark II is at. If you're going to be rough and tumble, out and about, the 7D is probably still the one you want to be going for.
Looking at your pants.
I know! What is it, guy?
Wait, does he want you to throw that like acorn thingy there?
This thing. Is it this? Is it this? Hey, little friend? No? Your guy. Okay, so we're just going to test the camera's new autofocus system. So as I said before, 45 all-cross type points. So we're going to check how it tracks as our subject is running towards you. And after we do this, we're going to shoot some dogs, you know, just some dogs running around. What better way to test a camera? So as we can see, the camera locked on and tracked throughout. There's a couple of images, maybe one or two, where the sharpness isn't quite on point, but for the most part, locked on, tracked fine, and the sharpness is there throughout. Is he in the shot? That would be amazing. Okay, so we're at this dog park here, and we're literally just gonna camp out at this fountain and see if we can get some dogs jumping in, test out the autofocus and burst mode capabilities of this camera, see what it can do. So very much the same as where our model was running. The camera locks on beautifully, tracks throughout. Again, it looks like there's one or two shots where the sharpness is a little bit off, but for the most part, tracked fine throughout. Even in the second sequence where we see the two dogs jumping out of the fountain, yeah, sharpness is there, tracking seems to work good. Hey, look at your screen. Okay, so the Canon 90D is the first Canon DSLR to feature 120 frames per second while recording full HD. Now, unfortunately, you don't get autofocus while shooting in 120 frames per second, and you also don't have sound recording, but it could still be quite a nice, useful feature. So I'm just gonna see what it looks like, recording the water coming down the this little fountain here. So let's just have a squiz. Hello! Now, the Canon 90D is also the first DSLR from Canon to feature face tracking autofocus and eye detect autofocus in its movie modes. And that's quite interesting and something quite new in the whole DSLR realm. And obviously Canon is trying to introduce some of that mirrorless technology into their DSLR lineup, you know, just to keep things going and keep it fresh and keep it interesting. So I'd love to see how it works. So we're going to shoot a little clip of 4K video with the face detect on and just see how it tracks and how accurate it is compared to what we see from mirrorless cameras. Go for it. Yeah, that focus looks perfect. So this is recording with the digital stabilization off. Trying to keep it as steady as I can. Okay, this is with the digital IS on its first setting. So I'm going to walk backwards. So the camera has cropped in slightly, but nothing too bad. But the camera seems okay. Okay, now we have the enhanced digital IS on. So it's cropped in a little bit more. At first glance, it seems smoother. Focus seems to be struggling a little bit more. 90D. That was good, right? Yeah. Okay, so that was the Canon EOS 90D first look. Now, what do I think about this camera? Well, Canon put some really interesting new features into it. I love the fact that this has now been bumped up to 32 megapixels. That is amazing for APS-C size cameras. And it really keeps that segment of the market alive. The other features that have been added are also really positive. The 4K video is really good. To see it in there now and to see it uncropped, that's a really positive move from Canon's side. The autofocus mode, really positive as well. The 45-point all-cross type system seems to work really, really well, especially when you're tracking diagonally moving subjects, even fast-moving subjects, like we saw dogs running and that kind of thing. Works really well, so that's also very solid in this market segment. Now, some of the other features added, like the face track autofocus and eye track autofocus in video, does seem to hunt a little bit too much and miss from time to time, but it's still a nice addition, a nice aid to have if you're looking at picking this camera up to do a bit of video shooting. So all in all, pretty positive. Then coming in from a slightly different angle, the ergonomics are fantastic, and that's something that I always love about Canon cameras. Nothing feels this good in your hand straight away from picking it up, and just by default, you know where everything is. Everything is exactly where you think it should be, and it falls beautifully to hand, and for that I have to applaud Canon. Now, where does this slot into Canon's lineup? Well, it is undoubtedly a replacement for the 80D, and in that, as a replacement for the 80D, it is fantastic. If you liked what the 80D offered and you just want more of that and better, this is an excellent camera to look at. looking at something like the 10 frames per second burst mode and the added autofocus functionality, it really is a very, very solid upgrade to what already was a very good camera. Well guys, thank you very much for joining us for that first look and field test of the all-new Canon EOS 90D. As always, if there's anything we missed or any questions you have, please don't forget to comment down below. We love hearing from you. Cheers. Huh? That was good, huh?